All right, so let's look at problem 1. They're asking us to factor, so notice the instructions. And they've given us 2 terms, but with factoring, we always look for the greatest common factor. So we're looking at that. Do we have one?
Yes.
4? All right, so let's take out 4. What are we going to be left with? Meaning 4 times something gives me 64a squared.
16.
Very good. Minus
9b
9b squared. All right, then on the inside, we're looking to see if we can factor it further. Because remember, when they talk about factoring, it has to be factored completely. So I'm noticing the perfect squares and the subtraction in between telling me it is going to factor further. So 4a times 4a would give me 16a squared.
Yes.
And then 3b and 3b. Tell me about the signs.
One's positive, one's negative.
Very good. And we have to keep the 4 out in front. All right, from there we've got it factored completely. Notice the wording. It says one of the factors is, meaning they're not looking for all of it. They're only looking for one section of it. So which one should we be picking?
4a minus 3b.
Very good. So we should be picking D. So D. Any questions on that one? Need to go back. How's the blue showing up?
Blue's looking good.
Okay. Any questions on that one? All right, then we're moving on to 2. Let me give you a chance to try to do it. All right, on problem 2, what do we have to do first? Because I notice I have absolute value and then I have this plus 3 on the outside. All right, we're going to have to subtract the 3 because we need to isolate the absolute value. All right, now we have absolute value of 3x minus 8 equaling to a positive 11. And remember, due to the absolute value, we're going to have 2 equations. One of them with a negative 11, the other one with a positive 11. And we're going to have to solve both of them. Looking at this first one, 3x minus 8 equaling to a negative 11, we're going to add 8. So 3x is going to equal to what? Negative 3. And then we're going to divide by 3, a negative 1. We're not quite finished with the problem because we have another equation that we need to solve, the one with the positive 11. So we're going to add 8. So 3x is going to equal to 19. Divide by 3. All right, now on the answer sheet, we need to be looking for the correct group of answers. So which one should we be picking?
C.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be C. All right, any questions on that number 2? Any questions there? Need to go back? Nope. All right, we're moving on to 3. Dealing with the lovely systems with fractions. All right, so on 3, they're asking us to solve the system. They're asking us to solve. So we're looking at the problem thinking, well, it would be much easier to work with if we could get rid of the fractions. So what would I multiply this whole equation by to eliminate the fractions? 12. And remember, whatever I multiply this side by, I have to multiply that side by the same value. So we're going to end up with 3x minus 4y equaling to 0. All right, this bottom equation, what could we do to eliminate the fractions? 8. All right, we're going to multiply both sides by 8. So let's look at what we're going to have now. 3x very good. Now, personally, I will just complete the problem before I look at which letter they're asking for, because that way I could check my work. I could plug it back into my system to see if that ordered pair is the solution or not. So I'll wait till the end. So do you agree it would be easier to eliminate x's?
Yes.
All right, so what could I do to be able to eliminate x's? All right, so let's do that. All right, so if I distribute that negative 1, we're going to have a negative 3x. Very good. So a negative 3x plus 4y equal to 0. That bottom equation is going to stay the same, correct? And we're going to start adding. Notice my x's are canceling, which they should. We wanted to eliminate x's, so 24y is going to equal to a negative 144. All right, so let's divide by 24 because we're trying to solve for y. All right, we're going to end up with a negative 6. But we're not finished with the problem because remember what I said a few minutes ago, I want to complete the problem before I look for the letter that they're asking for. So now I need to take this and plug it into one of the two equations to find x. You want to go to the top one? All right, so I'm going back to the 3x minus 4y equal to 0. And in place of y, we're going to put a negative 6. All right, so I substituted the negative 6 in place of y. We're going to subtract 24 from both sides. And then divide by 3. So what's x going to be? Negative 8. So we have the ordered pair, a negative 8, negative 6. And what do I mean by plugging those in? Because I'm not sure sometimes that y'all understand what I mean by that in terms of checking it. So this would go in place of what? X. And this would go in place of y. When I plug it into my calculator or do the calculations, it better end up being 0. If I plug this in place of x and this in place of y, when I calculate all that information, it better be a negative 18. Way of verifying that my answer is correct. They're asking for only x. So which one should we be picking? That's right, we should be picking B. Any questions on that one? Any questions? Good to go on it? All right, we're moving on. We're moving on to problem 4. Problem 4. All right, so I'm looking at this problem 4 and they're asking us to solve the system. So I'm going to think of this as equation 1 and equation 2. Notice equation 2 is already solved for y. Makes it kind of nice. It looks like it's set up for substitution. Do you agree? Substitution method. So if I've already used equation 2, that means equation 1 has not been used. So where are we going to put that 4x plus 12? All right, we're going to substitute in place of the y. And notice I have parentheses because all of that is representing my y, and it's after subtraction. So we're going to have to distribute that sign. So it's going to be 2x minus 4x minus 12 equaling to a negative 6. All right, combine like terms, what do we get? All right. So a negative 2x is equaling to a positive 6. I'm going to have to divide by negative 2. So what's x going to be? Negative 3. All right, we're not finished with the problem because we're missing a letter. What letter are we missing? Y. So let's go back over here, right? We're going to plug in. What are we plugging in? So what are we going to get for y? All right, so our ordered pair is a negative 3, 0, because you always write the x first. It is B. No, which one is it? D. D. All right, questions on that number 4? Any questions? We're good to go there? All right, we're moving on to 5. All All right, on number 5, they're asking us to factor. So I'm kind of going through the process thinking, well, which one applies, meaning which method applies. So we're looking for the GCF. We don't have a GCF. From there, I'm noticing the subtraction in the two terms, and they look like they're perfect squares. So it looks like maybe a difference of squares. So in place of the x to the 4th, we're going to put x squared and x squared in our groupings. They would multiply to give me x to the 4th. If I take the square root of 625, what do I get? 25. So one's going to be plus 25, the other one's going to be minus 25. And then we're looking, can we factor any of them further? Yes. Okay, can I this one? No. Okay, the addition one? No. Okay. So the subtraction one I can, because we have a difference of squares. They're both perfect squares. And then we're looking at the difference, meaning subtraction. And then the other one's going to be? All right, which one's going to be on the sheet? A, which is the x minus 5. Once again, they're looking for only one of the factors, only one of the factors. Questions on that one? Some of you are getting really confused on which one you can factor further. So be careful, because some of you are thinking this addition one you can factor further and you're not able to. All right, we're moving to our next problem. All right, so how do we get rid of the parentheses? Because that's where we seem to struggle on this one. We weren't sure how to get rid of them. All right, so you're going to have to multiply here. So I'm going to take the first, which is x squared, outer, which is a negative 3x, inner, which is a positive 4x, and last, which is a negative 12. What is that going to equal to? Well, I've got to distribute the 2. Very good. All right, do we have any like terms on this side?
Negative 3x.
All right, and those are going to combine to give me a, all right, so a positive 1x or positive x, either way. And then I notice that it's not linear because of that exponent, so I'm needing to get everything to one side. But I want this term to be positive, so I'm going to keep everything on the left. So how do we move the 2x to the left? All right, we're going to subtract it. How are we going to move that 8? We're going to subtract. So we have x squared. All right, so x squared minus x minus 20 equals 0. Then we're looking at that saying, well, we're going to have to factor it. So are there any factors of a negative 20 that are going to add to give me a negative 1? All right, and the 5 is going to have to be negative. I agree with y'all. So x minus 5 times x plus 4. All right, we're going to take those factors, set them equal to 0, and we're going to solve. We're going to end up with a positive 5, the other one being a negative 4. All right, we got to be careful on the wording on this problem because it says one of the solutions is between. Meaning if we were finding those numbers on the number line, one of them is going to have to be between the groups of numbers given. First one says a negative 6 and a negative 3. Well, wouldn't a negative 4 be between those values on the number line? Yes. All right, so it's going to be A. It is not saying the solutions are a negative 6 and a negative 3. So be careful. It's just saying that negative 4 is between those values. So A is going to end up being our answer.
All right, problem number 7 is asking us to solve this absolute value inequality. But before we can set it up, like asking ourselves whether it's an and or an or, we have to make sure the absolute value is isolated. So what do we have to do first? Correct. So let's subtract 5 from both sides. Notice we still have an absolute value. We have not done anything to get rid of those absolute value bars. Now we ask ourselves whether it's an and or an or statement. What do you think it is? It's an and statement. We have to set it up as an and. Why do we know it's an and statement? Right, it's pointing, right? It's less than. It's pointing to the absolute value. It's less than. So we have to set it up as an and statement. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this number, 1, and take the opposite, -1, write the same symbol. What's in the absolute value goes in the middle. And then keep the right side exactly the same. We still have that less than or equal to 1. Our goal now is to get x by itself in the middle. So what would our first step to do that be here? Yep. Let's add 1. So -1 plus 1? 0. We have to put that. We have 2x less than or equal to 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, so let's bring that over here. We still need to get that x by itself. So what do we need to do now? Yeah, let's divide everything by 2. What's 0 divided by 2? That leaves us our x, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So we have x is less than or equal to 1 and greater than or equal to 0. It's between 0 and 1. And what answer choice would that be? All right. Any questions on that one? No?
All right, so looking at the question, even though I didn't write it all, it's asking you to find the equation of the line that passes through the 2 points. So remember, for us to go through and find the equation of the line, one piece of information we have to have is the slope. So that's going to be step 1. We're going to have to find the slope. Meaning I need to use the formula m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. All right, so we're going to plug into that formula. So m equals. Keep in mind, you could label the point. You know, for some of you it does help. You would call this one x sub 1, y sub 1, referring to point 1. This one would be point 2, so x sub 2, y sub 2, and we're just going to plug in. So m equals a -1 minus a -2 over a -2 minus 4. We've got to reduce that down, reduce it down. So we're going to end up with a +1 over a -6, which is a -1/6. All right, so that's just step 1. Step 2, we're going to use point slope. And remember, that is y minus y sub 1 equaling to m times x minus x sub 1. So we're going to have to plug into that formula. It doesn't matter which point we use. Some of you are going to say, well, we labeled that one x sub 1, y sub 1, and if that's the case and it makes it easier for you, use that point. But it really doesn't matter at the end. You're going to get the same answer. So we're going to use point slope. I'm going to start over here because I'm going to run out of room. So y minus, which point do y'all want me to use? The first one? All right. So assuming we use this one. So we have y minus a -2 equaling to my slope. Where's my slope? All right, a -1/6 times x minus 4. Once again, referring to this point and my slope. We need to get rid of making the signs a little bit easier to work with, as well as getting rid of the parentheses. So subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. All right, so now let's go ahead and get rid of the parentheses. So we're going to distribute that -1/6. Remember, when you're subtracting that 4, it's like subtracting 4 over 1. So when we multiply, that's going to help us. I have a negative 1/6x. A negative times a negative is going to give me a positive. What are we going to get when we multiply? 4 over, and will that reduce? 2/3. All right, there's a couple of ways of going from here. You could multiply by 6 to get rid of the fractions and then solve for y, or we could just automatically subtract 2. If we're subtracting 2, wouldn't that be the same thing as subtracting 2 over 1? What would the LCD be? 3. So my first fraction here is going to stay a positive 2/3. What about that negative 2 over 1? What would I need to multiply top and bottom by? All right, she's telling me that's going to end up giving us a negative 6 over 3. All right, when we combine those, we're going to end up with y equaling to a negative 1/6x. What are we going to get when we combine these? A negative 4/3. All right. What are we going to be picking off of our answer sheet? B? B as in bat. Any questions in regards to the fractions? I realize for some of you, we really struggle with that. So maybe we need to recap a little bit over here. A negative times a negative gave me a positive. We decided to multiply straight across, which gave us the 4/6. Then we reduced it because we noticed both of them are divisible by 2. Gave me the 2/3. Then we subtracted 2 and had to get a common denominator, and we're able to combine them. Any questions? Need to go back? Y'all aren't saying much. That's usually not a good sign. You're good? All right. So we're moving on to 9.
All right, problem number 9 is asking us to solve. So we're going to try to get x by itself on one side. So what would our first step be?
When you multiply by negative.
Yeah, let's get rid of those parentheses by distributing.
Multiply or divide by negative.
So 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Everything else is just going to come down as is. Now I want to add together like terms. So can we add the 2x and minus 8x? What does that give us? Negative 6x. Negative 6 plus 7 plus 1. We can't add anything together on the right side. We'll just leave it as is. Now we want to bring all our x's to one side and all our numbers to the other. So all of our answers have x on the left, right? Yeah, so let's focus on bringing x to the left. If I were to bring this negative 2x over to this side, what would I need to do? I'm going to add 2x. And what's negative 6 plus 2x? Negative 4x. All we have left on that right side now is 13. Then we would subtract 1 from both sides. So we have a negative 4x less than 12. What would our last step be? Divide by negative 4. Be careful. We are dividing by a negative number. So what happens to the inequality symbol? Yeah, we have to flip that over. So that becomes x is greater than negative 3. That would be our answer. And what answer choice would that be? A. Notice the other one, x less than negative 3, is probably also one of the answer choices. So be careful. Remember that when you do divide an inequality by a negative number, it does flip that symbol. Also, if you multiply both sides, you have to flip it as well. Okay. Any questions on that one?
All right, so we're looking at problem 10, and we notice the terminology. Keep in mind, I didn't write the whole problem. I'm just adding some key information to the board. They're asking for the equation of the line that's parallel to this and contains this point. So parallel to that and contains the point. Once again, the equation of the line. So step one, somehow I got to find the slope. So we're going to look at the equation 9x minus 3y equal to a negative 12, and we're going to put it in slope-intercept form, meaning we're going to solve for y. So I need to move the 9x by subtracting it, and then divide by negative 3. So y is going to equal to 3x plus 4. All right, step 2. All right, let's talk about the slope. The slope of this line is 3. What about the parallel slope? 3. All right, it's going to be the same thing. And then we're going to have to use this point of negative 6, 8. All right, which references point slope form. All right, so refresh my memory. Let me write it up here. It's going to be y minus
y would equals m times x minus x would.
All right, and we're going to plug into that. Notice we have the slope and we have the point. So y minus 8 equals 3 times x minus a negative 6. We want to be careful about the signs. So anywhere that I can simplify the signs, I'm going to do that before I distribute. So that's going to be x plus 6. What's going to happen when we distribute the 3? We're going to have 3x plus 18. We're almost there. What else do we need to do? Add the 8. So y equals 3x plus 26, which is which choice? It's going to be B. Any questions on that one? Any questions? Need to backtrack. Good to go. All right, we're on to 11 then.
All right, problem number 11, they're giving us this function, f of x is equal to negative 3x minus 2x squared. And they're asking us to find f of negative 6. So they're asking us to find the function value when x is equal to negative 6. So what would we do here? We have, right, we're going to substitute negative 6 wherever we see an x. So negative 6 in for this x, and negative 6 in for that x as well. Then we're just going to follow our order of operations to evaluate f of negative 6. So we need to do the exponent first. What's negative 6 squared? Positive 36, so negative 6 times negative 6, positive 36. Then we can do our multiplication. What's negative 3 times negative 6? 18. Positive 18. A negative 2 times 36, negative 72. And then 18 minus 72, a negative 54. So f of negative 6 ends up giving us negative 54. Yep, and that is answer choice E. Thank you. All right, any questions on that one?
Kirk, you may want to reiterate when it says a negative 2x squared, it's a negative 2 times x squared. I had several that were trying to subtract that 2.
Yeah. So if you ever have a number that's in front of a variable, it's representing multiplication. And in order to be subtraction or addition, there has to be a sign between the number and the variable. So if you do have a number right next to a letter, it always represents multiplication. Okay. Good question. All right. Any other questions on that one?
All right, problem 12. Notice it's a distance problem, so we're going to use distance equals rate times time. So we're doing a little chart trying to separate the information, listing downstream and upstream, taking the information that's been given, 40 miles downstream is going to go under distance, as well as the 14 miles upstream is going to go under distance. Time, they told me it took 4 hours to go downstream, and they also told me it took 7 hours to go upstream. We have to remember that when we're going downstream, the speed of the boat plus the current, we're going to go faster going downstream. The speed of the boat plus the current. Upstream, we're going to go against the current, so we're going to be subtracting. All right, so just filling in the chart, this is what we have at this moment. So we're going to take this row and we're going to rewrite it going right to left. So we have 4 times B plus C equaling the 40. So once again, I'm just starting on this end and rewriting it. Starting on this end, I'm going to have 7 times B minus C equaling the 14. All right, a couple of ways of dealing with the problem. Either we're going to distribute the 4, distribute the 7, and then try to eliminate B's or C's. Another way of dealing with it is that we could divide out the 4. So if we divide the 4, or divide by 4, I should say, we're going to have B plus C equaling the 10. So once again, if we divide by 4, what about this bottom one, meaning that bottom equation? What could we divide by? 7. All right, so let's divide by 7, which is going to give me B minus C equaling the 2. Look at what's going to happen if we just start adding. What's going to happen to my C's? They're going to cancel. So we have 2B equaling the 12. So where would we go from there? Divide by 2. So B is going to be 6. All right, how would we finish the problem? Because we're not finished. Plug it in. And do you agree the addition one would probably be the easier one for most people? The B plus C equaling the 10. All right, and C is going to end up being 4. Keep in mind it's referencing a rate, so it's going to be miles per hour in this case. Which one are they asking for? The speed of the boat or the current? The boat. All right, so here's my boat. So which one would we pick in terms of our choices? B. All right, anything I need to go back to on this problem? Need to clarify anything on that one? LaToya saying it's good. She is with the program. Okay, that's fine. We'll give you a chance. Alonzo, do we need to go back to a step? Do I need to clarify anything? You do need to make sure that you associate downstream as going faster, meaning the B plus C. They have to go together. Just like upstream, it's going to be the speed of the boat minus the current. So you got to make sure you make those. It's going against it, yes. I use on the left, and that's true for those two.
Problem number 13 is asking us to solve this system of 3 equations. So organization is the key on these types of problems. I'm going to go ahead and label my equations 1, 2, and 3. What you want to do is start out by picking a pair of equations, eliminating one of the variables, picking another, a separate pair, and eliminating that same letter. So any ideas on where to start, on what letter might be a good choice to eliminate? X. I agree. You've got equations 2 and 3 here that would eliminate right away. So let's do equations 2 and 3. X plus 4y minus 3z equals 21. Negative x minus 3y plus 4z equals negative 25. If we were to add those two equations together, what's going to happen to the x's? Yeah, they cancel out, they eliminate, which is what we wanted. 4y minus 3y is just y. Negative 3z plus 4z plus z. And then what's 21 minus 25? Negative 4. We've discovered a new equation, and we'll call that equation 4. So let's pick a separate pair, something other than 2 and 3 combined together, and we have to eliminate x again. Yeah, 1 and 2 or 1 and 3, right? I always like to go for the one that already has opposite signs. All right, so let's maybe start with 1 and 3. What would we have to multiply equation 3 by so that it eliminates with 2x in equation 1? 2. So we're just going to multiply equation 3 by 2. Equation 1, 2x minus y plus 2z equals negative 7. If we multiply equation 3 by 2, what are we going to get? Negative 2x, negative 6y, plus 8z, negative 50. Once again, we're just taking 2 times equation 3. We're multiplying this whole equation by 2. If we add those two equations together, what's going to happen to the x's? They cancel, they eliminate. That was our goal. Negative y minus 6y is negative 7y. 2z plus 8z is 10z. And then negative 7 and negative 50 is negative 57. So we have another equation, and we'll call that equation 5. What we now want to do is look at equation 4 and 5 and see if we can't eliminate one of those letters. So any ideas on what would be an easy one to solve there? Yeah, it looks like either one of them will work. So let's look at equation 4 and equation 5. If I wanted to eliminate y, what would I need to do? Well, I've already got a negative 7 here. Yeah, so I'm just going to multiply equation 4 by 7. If I multiply equation 4 by 7, what does that give me? 7y plus 7z. 7 times negative 4? What happens to the y's? They cancel. What's 7z plus 10z? Negative 28 and negative 57? Negative 85? So if I divide both sides by 17, positive or negative? Negative. So there's z, but in order to solve something completely and to be able to check it at the end, we really need to find the other letters. So let's take z and plug it back in. Where do we need to plug that back in to figure out one of the other letters? Yeah, equation 4 or 5. It doesn't matter which one, but I always like to use the easier one. Wouldn't equation 4 be the easier of the two? Right. So we've got y plus z equals negative 4. We know now that z is negative 5. And if I add 5 to both sides, what's y end up being? What's negative 1 plus 5? 4? Then let's go back and figure out what the third letter is, which is x. What equation would you like to use? The second one? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So let's go to equation 2. X plus 4y minus 3z equals 21. Let's plug in the values that we already know. We don't know what x is, that's what we're looking for. Y we just found, that was 4. Z we found earlier, that was -5. What's 4 times 4? 16. -3 times -5? Did I mess up somewhere?
I think so. They just now saw it. I think that you should actually copy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, by the way, y is 1. So y is 1, let's plug that in here. Thank you for whoever caught that, I appreciate that. No, I was looking down here and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, something's... I was looking down here and I was like, oh, this is not going to be right. What's going on? And I was already freaking out. I was over here. I was like, okay, so 4 plus 15 is 19. And if we subtract 19 from both sides, we get 2. Okay. All right, so we found our answer. 2 after a little bit of trouble. We have x, y, and z, but on the multiple choice test, they're just going to ask you for one of them. And they're asking for the solution for z, which ended up being the first one that we found. So it's going to be this answer, and that was answer choice E.
All right, y'all, let's go ahead and get started on this one. So what's the GCF of the 3 terms? 2. Hopefully you remembered to look for the GCF. All right, then we're looking at the information that's inside. We're double checking, make sure we didn't make a mistake. I'm going to cover up that 2 and realize it's part of my answer at the end. Okay, so inside the parentheses, I'm noticing the coefficient here is 3, so we're going to take 3 times 20. Gives me 60. Are there any factors of 60 that are going to add to give me a -17? -5, -12. And why do they both have to have the same sign? That product gives me a +60, which came from the +3 and 20. All right. So we have 3x squared minus 12. What letters do I have to attach to that -12? X and Y. Same thing with the -5, X and Y. And we're going to factor by grouping. Tell me about that first grouping. 3x. Leaving me with x minus 4y. What about the next grouping? -5y. Leaving me with... All right, notice the parentheses are the same. They should be. If not, there's a mistake. Or it could be prime. So we have x minus 4y times 3x minus 5y. What's out in front? The 2. Remember with the factoring problems, they will be saying one of the factors is, which one should we be picking? Ooh, all right, let's double check my signs. She's thinking maybe this should be plus, but notice I led with the negative here, so I had to factor out a negative. So it should be A. A as in apple. Josie, you see that? Yeah. Okay. All right, any questions on 14? Any questions? Go ahead, Courtney.
How do you know when you have to multiply the first number by the last number?
If this is not 1. If it's 1, I don't have to.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on 14? All right, let me give you a chance to kind of look at it. Make sure that you're on track. We're going to be moving on to 15.
All right, problem number 15 is asking us to graph. And we have a linear equation, right? We just have x and y, power of 1. Negative x minus 4y equals 8. The best way to graph it is having it in slope-intercept form. So how could we get it in slope-intercept form? How can we get it in y equals mx plus b? Okay. We have a minus x, so let's add x to both sides. So negative 4y equals x plus 8. Then how could I approach the problem? What would I need to do to get y by itself? So let's divide both sides by negative 4, which means dividing all pieces by negative 4. So we have y equals, what's the number in front of x assumed to be here? 1. So I could write this as negative 1/4 x. 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. So what is my slope? Negative 1 over 4. And my y-intercept? Yeah, it's negative 2, which is the same thing as the point 0, negative 2. The slope is rise over run. So what this is telling me is I need to go down 1 and over 4. So let's start at our y-intercept, 0, negative 2. That would be that point there. If I do my rise over run, I'm going down 1 and over 4. So down 1 over 4. Let's get a third point just to make sure we're all lined up. I could go down 1 and over 4 again this way. What if I wanted to get a point on the other side? What would I need to do? Yeah, do the opposite. Go up 1 and to the left 4. So if I draw a line through my points, or attempt to draw a line through my points, we get this graph here, and it's going to match which answer choice? D. D as in dog. Any questions on that one? Oh. Yeah, I'm standing in front of all the answers. Any questions on 15? Ready for 16 then?
Yeah, no. All right, so I'm looking at problem 16, and I'm looking at my options, and I'm looking at the picture. And I remember when we graphed linear inequalities, our first step always was to pretend that we had equals. Y'all remember that? So I'm going to pretend like I have equals in each one of these. Notice each of them are written into slope-intercept form. Or I should say each is. So notice that, once again, I'm just pretending that I have equals. If it was not in slope-intercept form, I would have to put it in slope-intercept form. All right, so we're going to compare the graph. This one's saying my y-intercept is 3. And it's saying my slope is 1/2, meaning I should go down, should go up 1, to the right 2, meaning my slope's positive. Does that have a positive slope? Hang on, did I copy this wrong? 1/2. I just want to make sure I didn't copy my signs down wrong. All right, so this one has a positive slope. Does that have a positive slope? Shouldn't that be negative? It's going downward. So couldn't I automatically eliminate that one? All right, over here, I have a positive slope as well. Does that have a positive slope? No, eliminate it. This one has a negative slope, correct? All right, so let's check it out. My y-intercept's 3. My slope's a negative 2, meaning I should be going down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. Looks like this one's a possibility, right? So we'll come back to it. We may use that one, we may not. We're not sure yet. Same thing on this one, right? We need to come back to it. What about this one? No, because it has a positive slope, doesn't make sense. Y'all in agreement? So we're between the two, meaning C or D. And we're going to base it off of a test point. So what test point do you want to use?
0, 0.
0, 0. All right, let's locate 0, 0. Here it is, right here. It's on the shaded side, so what does that mean?
True.
It's true. So this side has to be true. This side has to be false. All right, we're using 0, 0, so it has to be true. So let's plug it into the part that has the inequality, because that's what we're testing. So is 0 less than 3?
Yes.
And what did we say it had to be?
True.
So this would be my answer? So this would be our answer. Okay. So what if you had picked a point over here? It would have to make it false. And if you plugged it in, it would make it false. So it depends on where you're picking the test point. We picked 0, 0 because that's an easy one to plug in. Easy one to plug in. Once again, it's on the shaded side, my test point, so it has to make it true. Questions on that 16? 16? No? I don't know. I think y'all struggle with these sometimes. That's why I'm asking you if we need to go back. Lonzo saying, do you think they're easy too? Well, that's good. For some people, it's not. They get confused with the test point, knowing what to do with it. Any questions? Okay, we're moving on.
All right, problem number 17 is a word problem involving I'm guessing a pet store trying to buy pet supplies in the forms of cat food and dog food. So we need to set up a system of equations to help us solve the problem with the information given. So it says currently cat food costs $12 a bag, dog food costs $20 a bag, and that totals this month to $2.92. I guess next month the prices are going up, and $13 is what cat food is going to cost, and dog food is going to cost $22 a bag. So they're asking how many bags of cat food are in each order. But we want to solve this completely. We have two unknowns here. We have X and Y. So what are the two things we don't know? One of them is that last question at the end. How many bags of cat food? So we'll call X the number of bags of cat food. So what's the other thing we don't know? What could we let Y be equal to? Yeah, the dog food. The number of bags of dog food. So one of the equations is dealing with this month's order. Now we know this month's order totaled how much? $2.92. And how much does cat food cost this month? $12. So $12 for every bag of cat food. How much for dog food? $20 for every dog or bag of dog food. And that totaled $292. The other situation, our other equation, is next month. How much did cat food go up to? So $13 per bag. How much does dog food go up to? 22 per bag. And so our price is going to go up to $3.19 next month if we're ordering the same amount. So we have a system of equations, two equations there. How would we solve that? What could we do?
You need to multiply the top one by negative 13 and the bottom by positive 12.
You could. And what is that method called when we do that?
Additional elimination.
Addition elimination. So you're saying multiply this one by negative 13 and this one by 12? Yep. That's going to help That's going to eliminate our x's for us. I might need some help on the arithmetic here.
Negative 156
Thank you. Negative 156x,
minus 260.
y, and then negative 13 times 292,
3796.
and that would be negative, right? Negative 3796, okay?
And then you get a positive 156.
Okay, and that's good because we want our x's to eliminate. 12 times 22,
Positive 264.
thank you.
And a positive 3828.
Okay,
You get 4.
our x's eliminate. Negative 260y plus 264, that's correct, 4y. And then 32.
Yeah, 32.
So 4y equals to 32. If we divide both sides by 4, y ends up being 8. Okay. It's very important that you label what x and y represent at the very beginning, because sometimes you get answers but you don't know what they mean. So y represented the number of bags of dog food. So we know that there's 8 bags of dog food. How can we figure out how much cat food we need? Yeah, we could plug it in. We could use either of these equations. Let's say I use that first equation, the 12x plus 20y equals 292. So 12x plus 20y equals 292. We're going to take that 8, plug it in for y. Yep. 20 times 8 will give 160. If we subtract 160 from both sides, we get 12x equal to, thank you, and then dividing both sides by 12, should get 11, right?
Yeah.
So there's 11. So I know I have 11 bags of cat food. And the question did ask how many bags of cat food are in each order, and that would be letter choice A. Did they also have 8 on there? One of the answer choices? So it's very important. Be ashamed to do all that hard work and then pick the wrong answer. So just be careful. All right. Any questions on that one?
I have a question. But it's
Yes.
not like all that. Whenever they all cancel out, is it parallel lines or infinite numbers?
Infinite number of solutions. So did you get like 0 equal to 0?
Or they just all cancel out?
Yeah, and if they do, you're going to get 0 on one side and 0 on the other. If you get that case, that will be an infinite number of solutions.
All right, so I'm assuming on 18, you probably started off trying to eliminate y's, because that kind of looks like the easier letter for most people. If not, that's okay. So did you end up multiplying to get a negative 72 and a positive 72? If not, what did y'all multiply by? Hang on. Oh, you went with large numbers. Chelsea, what did you end up with when you were looking for the,
Whenever I did the y, I did, I
What-
got 72.
okay,
9 times 8 equals 72, and then 24 times 3 equals 72.
okay.
That's what I got.
Now, we didn't have to go with the smaller. I noticed some of you, all you did was switch the numbers. So you multiplied the top one, let's say, by 24 and the bottom one by 9. It didn't matter to you if they were extremely large or extremely small numbers, but this would give you smaller numbers to deal with. All right, when we multiply through by 8, what did you end up with?
You get 96, and then you get negative 72, and you get negative 46,
I think 48, right?
48, yeah.
Okay. And then if we distributed the 3, we're going to end up with the negative 96x.
And positive 72, and
All right, we start adding. And we're ending up with 0 equal to 0. Now, I know some of you are saying you're looking at those numbers saying those are not the numbers I got because I chose to multiply by something different than what you did. But at the end, you still should have ended up with 0 equal to 0. And notice that is a true statement, which means there's an infinite number of solutions. So an infinite number of solutions. Notice they use the terminology that the lines coincide as well. Notice they grouped it together. So we should be picking B.
Yeah.
Meaning if you were graphing those lines, even though they're not asking you to graph them, they would be the same line. They'd be on top of one another. Infinite number of solutions. So B for 18. Any questions on that? Need to clarify? All right, we're moving on to 19.
19 is asking us to factor. We have 4 terms, but we also need to check, is there a greatest common factor to begin with? Putting this one all 4. Putting on all 4. There is 4 terms, so what kind of grouping would you need to do when you have 4 terms? Factoring by grouping. So let's look at these 2 groups separately. What's the greatest common factor of this first pairing? X squared. If we factor that out, that leaves us with what? Be careful on your sign. Minus 1. Yeah, minus 1. Now, there isn't anything really common, so to speak, with this next pairing. But remember, for grouping to work, the parentheses need to be the same. So is there something I could factor out of both of those? 1. Back out of 1. And because this is negative, it has to be negative. So if I factor out a -1, that's going to change the signs. So what is this second set of parentheses going to look like? 2x minus 1. Are my parentheses the same? Yes. That's good. That means the grouping works. I can factor that as my greatest common factor. And I'm left with what's in front, x squared minus 1. And I'm done, right?
No.
No, I'm not done. You have to check to see if any one of your factors can factor further. Can either of those factor further? Yes. Because x squared minus 1 is still a difference of squares. We can factor that into x plus 1 and x minus 1. So that would be my completely factored answer. It's going to ask for one of the factors, and that one would be answer choice C. Notice x squared minus 1 is one of the answer choices. They always put that on there. Anything that's still factorable would not be in factored form, so just be careful, don't select that answer. It ends up being what, x plus 1? Yeah, answer choice C. Any questions on that one? Pretty recent material, so hopefully that's not going to be a problem. Any questions on 19? 2 more, 3 more. All right.
All right, on 20, notice that we have absolute value on the left of this equation as well as on the right. So we're going to have 2 equations. One we're going to reference as same, so we're just going to drop the absolute value. We'll solve that equation. Other one's going to be in reference to opposite, so we're going to drop the absolute value on the left. On the right-hand side, we're going to change the sign of all of our terms. All right, we're going to solve over here. Probably you're going to subtract x. And then from here, we're going to subtract 3. So I'm ending up with x equaling to a -9. Y'all in agreement there? Over here, probably you're adding 2x to both sides. So I have 3x minus 6 equaling to a negative 3. From here, I'm going to add 6. So 3x equals a positive 3. I'm going to divide by 3. So x is going to be 1. So we're ending up with a negative 9 or a positive 1. And we should be picking, let's see, D, looks like to me. D as in dog. Any questions on that one? Did y'all remember to change the sign of both of the terms on the right-hand side? I see one yes. Okay. So D on 20. Just a couple more to go, y'all. We'll get there. 2 more. All right, 21. Let me give you a chance to do 21.
Problem number 21 is asking us to graph 1/4 x minus 1/3 y equal to 1. This goes back to our problem we were doing earlier. It's linear. I want to get it in this form y equals mx plus b. I could make it a lot easier to deal with though if I got rid of the fractions. What can I multiply an equation by to eliminate my denominators, to eliminate the fractions? 12. My lowest common denominator, 4 and 3 would be 12. And remember, that's like multiplying by 12 over 1. So 12 over 1 times 1 over 4, what would that end up being? 3x, 12 divided by 4. 12 over 1 times 1 over 3, 12y. And then 1 times 12 is just 12. Now we're back at just rearranging it to get y by itself. What would I move first?
Get my 7 by 4. Okay.
The x. So negative y equals negative 3x. That's still a positive 12. Then I would divide both sides by negative 4. That means we're dividing every point by negative 4. So I have a negative 3/4, or a negative 3 over a negative 4. It is a positive because I am still dividing a negative by a negative. And then what's 12 divided by negative 4? Negative 3. So I've got y by itself. It's in slope-intercept form. What's my slope? What's my y-intercept? And that means we're going up 3 and over 4. So at the start of my y-intercept, instead of negative 3, it'll be here. From my y-intercept, I'm going to go up 3 and over 4. Let's get a third point just to make sure we're lined up. Up 3, over 4 again. Connecting those points, we get this line. And it's a graph, so they're going to give us a choice. So which line matches up with our graph? B or D?
B.
B. Yep. So B would be our answer choice. Any questions on that one? 22.
All right, so how are we going to find the slope of this equation? Because remember, we've got to have the slope and a point to use point slope. So how are we going to find the slope?
Or y equals mx plus b.
All right, so we're trying to put it in slope-intercept form. So I would need to subtract the x, correct? Okay, what else would I need to do? divided by 2. Remember we talk about in class that sometimes we make mistakes and it's necessary for us to put that in there just to eliminate those errors. So y is going to equal to a negative 1/2 x plus 5. So what's my slope of this line?
Negative 1/2.
Negative 1/2. All right, so let's go to step 2. All right, I need my perpendicular slope. So what am I going to need to do to this?
Flip it and then make it sign.
All right, so we're going to flip it and change the sign. Another way of saying that's the negative reciprocal. All right, so we're going to have a positive 2 for our perpendicular slope, and we have this point, which is a negative 6, negative 1. I'm trying to make sure I copied it down right. All right, so we're going to use point slope. So we have y minus y sub 1 equaling to m times x minus x sub 1. And we're just going to plug in that information and reduce. So y minus a negative 1 equals 2 times x minus a negative 6. Can we simplify any of the signs before we get rid of the parentheses? All right. That makes it a lot easier to work with. All right, so subtracting a negative, same thing as adding a positive. From here, we're going to distribute the 2. And then we need to subtract the 1. So y equals 2x plus 11. So which one should we be picking? A. A is in apple. All right. Y'all feel more comfortable with the info? Uh-uh.